Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dashcoin Research podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Wenzel, and today I have Rocky with me. Rocky is a professional trader. He manages his own book, and he's been trading since 2021. Rocky, it's great to have you here to talk about the ICM meta.
Hey, thanks for having me. Big fan.
Yeah, so you're the first trader I've had on, and it's a long time coming because I've been getting a lot of founders on here to talk and get their perspective, but it's time that I get a pro trader in here. And I'm really excited to hear your perspective on what excites you. But first, I want to get into your background a little bit. So maybe you can give us a brief overview of who you are.
Yeah, without going into too many details, I used to work at a multi-strat crypto fund. I joined the industry in 21, and then I worked kind of on the infra side as well for a small time, but now I just trade my own book. And it's kind of like segmented into three spots. So one is just longer term, high conviction spot holds. One of it's on chain, and then one of it's more tactical perps.
And is this falling into the more tactical, scalpy type behavior?
It depends on the market, so I kind of adapt how the market adapts. There's no like one type of trade that I do. You just got to be nimble and adapt. Like for example, one of the biggest market structure shifts was the Bitcoin ETFs, where the market really changed after that. So it's kind of like see what's going on and adapt to whatever's happening.
Yeah, definitely. Like a lot more Bitcoin dominance after that happened, right? And we're not seeing the same kind of altcoin like performance since that ETF happened.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. We did see massive altcoin season last year, but that was in memes. It was the same game. It was just a different wrapper around it. Like all the ball was taken over by on-chain memes and stuff like that. So it was similar. It was an alt season. It just wasn't how people would have thought it would have been given historical 21.
Yeah, true. And did you play that meta the
I
when the
did.
meme
I
rotation
was
happened?
pretty
Did you have
big into
any
the
sick
meme meta.
wins?
I round tripped a lot on Whiff, but that was a good win. And then SPX, um, pretty big SPX backs back then. And then Trump, I did pretty good on that during that one weekend. I think that Trump weekend, when he announced the coin, I was up for like 72 hours in a row just trading and scalping. There was so much volume on that weekend. And then just passed out and died Sunday night after Melania launched and kind of fucked over the entire cycle.
Yeah, yeah, that was crazy. But now we're talking about Believe coins, and that's like the main reason I had you on here. Um, and so, what excites you about this? Like, why are you even paying attention to these coins?
Yeah, so Believe, I had this thesis about 2 or 3 months ago about generally vibe coding and how startups as a sector or industry are going to change dramatically after AI tooling. And I think, ironically enough, Chamath was one of the first guys big on this with this 80-90 company where effectively you don't need to raise $5 to $10 million from VCs to create a net new product and find product market fit. You just need, let's say, 10K, 20K worth of AI tooling. You can much easily create seven-fig ARR companies just because of the advancements in AI. So I believe what so kind of had this thesis back then. There were no good teams or builders in crypto doing this, and the crypto angle kind of became interesting because I come from a TradFi background. So initially, when I got into crypto, I was very fascinated by adding tokens into the capital structure for companies. So we have like in TradFi, you have debt and you have equity, and then you have a bunch of different types of debt and equity within cap structure. But tokens never really hit it off. It was more sort of like a recursive Ponzi within crypto itself, where all the tokens are kind of like during DeFi summer, it's like you mint a token to farm another token, but it's all worth zero. But with this kind of change in startups, it just makes more sense to have token as a different part of the capital stack for these companies rather than going the equity route or going the debt route.
Yeah, and
And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I think it was you who posted something about like part of what's exciting about these is that you're having net new inflows that are not just cyclical because in like DeFi summer we had crypto people just trading crypto bags, and it was all kind of self-contained, and like the yields were kind of coming from crypto people going back to crypto people. But we have a chance to get revenues into these like real companies from normal people who actually use the products, and then have those kind of flow into a token. Was that right? Were you the one posting that?
Yeah. So I think one aspect there is that, and why I like Pasternak a lot, and I glaze him a lot too, but that's more of a shit post. But there's, for the first time, we have the opportunity to bring on net new app creators into the ecosystem. Like, we had DeFi Summer, it was more, as you mentioned, recursive, Ponzi type flywheels. Then we had this circle jerk of block space providers entering the market via crypto VCs, because it was a very easy relative trade to be made there. But both of those games are kind of like dead now. Memes are also kind of dead now. So it's kind of like a lot of things are the right spot for belief really take it off. Considering the thematic tailwinds in startup world, as well as this team and this demand for speculation and real revenue in crypto among investors and traders.
Yeah. And I think you're familiar with the graphic that's like, oh, this is all memes are like 100% mimetic, and then real products are like 10% actual product, and 90% of the value is from the meme. I think we're probably going to see something similar here, where like these things are going to be valued like way too high, but there's still a lot of money to be made by getting the right calls here.
I disagree there a bit. I think that meme was true back in 21. It was true even like last year. But if you look at relative outperformance over the past 3 months since the Melania cycle top, like Hyperliquid's done the best, has had the best return profile relative to any other non-Bitcoin token. And that doesn't really fit in that mimetic. There is a speculative premium there, don't get me wrong, but it's going to decay over time and decay towards zero over the next couple of years. Not immediately, but I think that meme of fundamentals drive 10%, mimetics drive 90% is still going to be true, and there's going to be pockets of overvaluation among some of these ICM tokens, but there's just a lot of survivorship bias among participants that it's not going to be as big as prior. Like, revenues matter, tokenomics, buybacks matter, all that stuff matters so much more. It's because people who didn't care about it, let's say 2 years ago, they got like lost a lot of money, and there's no longer in space.
Yep. Actually, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I like that you brought up Hyperliquid, because to me, that is the ultimate internet capital markets token. You have this application, Hyperliquid, the exchange, that makes a shitload of money, kind of in just purely in the internet space, and then gives that money back to token holders by buybacks, which are essentially like dividends. If you do the math, buybacks kind of have the same effect on holder value that dividends do. And I'd like your perspective on that. Do you kind of share that? Do you disagree with that?
I directionally, there's a bit nuanced difference between like buybacks and dividends tax wise and stuff, but functionality wise, yeah, it's the best. I'm a massive hype bull. Majority of the book is in hype. It's the best product, and the tokenomics are also really good. And one thing that people didn't realize, I think it's increasingly coming to form as a narrative, is that over the past 6-7 months, the assistance fund has been buying hype from the market through this buyback mechanism. And by doing so, there's just less supply in the market as well. So there is also an increased probability for, let's say, a more mimetic-esque spec prem going up over time as supply comes down, on top of just the great fundamentals that hype has.
Yeah. Yeah, hype is exciting because it's such a profitable company, and like you said, it's like distributing. It's doing a good job of distributing that value back to holders in different ways. And so, I wonder, how does that impact your thesis on these different ICM coins? Like, right now, most of them haven't implemented token like into their app really yet, but I feel like that's changing soon. So how are you looking at which tokens are interesting to you and which companies are interesting to you.
Yeah, I think I take like aside from launch itself, kind of take a three-pronged approach. The first prong is, and tokenomics or buybacks is definitely one of the prongs, but it's also what is like the product, what's the probability you can have product market fit over the next 6 months, what are potential fees that it can generate from potential PMF over the next 6 months. And then the second prong is more so founder based, like, does he ever is, like, can he find distribution? I think the tech, to me, tech doesn't really matter at all. It's kind of like nerd shit, especially for consumer products. You really need to have the ability to go out there and drive distribution if you want to make revenue. So I think the founder kind of like is one prong. And then the last prong is obviously token buyback or utility or how is it integrated within the app itself. So that's how I look at them. I'm not too deeply invested in a lot of the apps. Most of it's just launch right now, and I'm just like buying more as we go down. But a couple of apps I do like is Kled or Kled. I think that's very interesting. It's kind of analogous to Grass directionally, but I think there's a high probability it can go viral among, like, let's say, college students or young adults or high schoolers because you upload your photos from your iPhone and you just get free money. And that's just fucking sick. So it's a really cool distribution there. And then I like PQ as well. I think that's a pretty cool product in the sense that it decreases the friction required to trade on Poly Market. Because right now, like, I'm based in the U.S., I need a VPN to use Poly Market. It's kind of like annoying. So I think that's a cool app as well that's being built. And again, the founder has motion on Twitter, so it's like he has the ability to just drive more users through Surewill and his network. But that said, I haven't looked too deeply into the tokenomics for these two. But I'm pretty sure they're both doing some sort of buyback.
Yeah, fair enough. One thing with Kled's really interesting one to me. I mean, he's the founder's quite a Chad. He's successfully built a few companies before. He's got a lot of good connections and I think a really cool product idea. I wonder how sustainable it is. Like, how can you really pay people that much money for data? I feel like the data in my camera roll cannot be worth much more than like a few cents. I just don't see how that's possible. But maybe it is. So, I mean, I want to have that guy on the show too to like ask more, but he hasn't gotten back to me in DMs yet. One day.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't done the math on like their model right now. I know that they were initially going to be paying people out in Kled, but for the batch yesterday, they paid them out in Sol. And there's like differences there because if it's Kled denominated payouts, that just increases structural seller pressure from Kled the token. I don't believe recently changed the model where app creators get paid out in Sol and not their native token, from my understanding. So, but one thing to make it sustainable is that it depends on how much revenue you're bringing in. Because at the end of the day, it's kind of like paying people the shared data is kind of like the cost, the COGS on the income statement. But if you can bring out more revenue from enterprises or companies by selling this data, you just need to make a spread there. And then if the spread's positive, you're kind of like Gucci.
Yep. Yeah, really good point. I mean, it's an exciting thing, and I want to learn more about it. It's just some of the details are opaque to me right now, so I don't have a bag yet, but hopefully one day soon.
And disclosure, I have like small bags in Kled and PQ, so yeah.
None of this is financial advice. If you take advice from a podcaster, you're dumb. So, you're mostly in launch. Interesting. A lot of people have been giving Ben and the team so much flack, probably because the token price is down, but they've been hating on him, and I want to hear your advice to Ben and the Believe team to make it succeed.
I mean, I'm a nobody. I'm like no one to give advice to. I think one thing on CT is that there's been a lot of noise and a lot of just crying at the casino or just crying for a flywheel. Like a flywheel helps, yes, it brings back utility and fee accrual to token holders, but the flywheel isn't what is going to make Launchcoin or Believe succeed over the next 2 to 3 years. for them to succeed in the next 2 to 3 years, for the vision to actually come out, they have to destigmatize net new creators, mostly like Silicon Valley guys, Web2 startup guys that are using AI tools to build new startups, to adopt and utilize tokens as a form of capital formation, and to use that as a capital structure instead of going out and doing a seed round or angel round to kind of test out an idea. So if they can do that, and that's what he's been focused on. Like over the past week, he is like endlessly. I think Saturday night he pushed out updates at like midnight EST. Just continues to improve the platform and protocol. So I think that's more important for the long-term health. I think a lot of the crying on TT is short-term. My backs are down. But one thing, another thing on that is that they have said explicitly a lot of times that there will be a value accrual coming over time. So I'm not too worried about that.
Fair enough. You say you're a nobody and like you're not someone to give advice. I do feel like I want to push back a little bit there. I bet you, just being crypto native, you have some ideas of like what the flywheel might look like. If not, that's okay. But I just want to like prod you again to maybe share something, even if it's not awesome advice. Just like, what are your general ideas?
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's two prongs to a potential value accrual. And it's kind of just like copying pasting from best practices in crypto so far. I think one thing that would be cool is kind of the virtuals model, kind of adding moneyness to the asset itself by pairing Launch with all of the apps and discourage and making the fees so you discourage people to outflow from the ecosystem. So selling USDC for Launch and or Launch for the app token is no fee, but if you want to go out of the ecosystem, add a fee there. Kind of like the Tether model, where to just encourage people from selling or Tether back into native cash, they have a fee there. And I think the second part is copying Hyperliquid, the AF, where you have X amount of fees that go back to buy the Belief token. So it's
See, I'm glad I pushed back because those are both awesome ideas. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Are you looking to enter positions on any of these little tokens? Right now the biggest Believe token that's not Launchcoin is CLED, and it's like 17 million or 15 million. So they're all like tiny micro caps. Like no one's paying attention to these really on Twitter in the broad spectrum right now. And I'm wondering, do you think you'll add more to these lower, like more speculative plays, or are you mostly just going to play this with Launchcoin?
I think it's just easier for me, like from a clarity of thought point of view, and to keep dumping more into Launch. It's like I have the most conviction in Launch, although I do like Colette and BQL. And it's just easier to buy the dip and just wait for these to play out rather than spend extra time on other apps and other tokens that might come out. So I may buy more. Like I have some price targets for CLED. If it goes below this level, I'll buy some. And for PQL, but majority of cash I still have is just going to go back to buy more Launch.
Fair play. And the good thing about Launch too is it has very deep liquidity. You can like size in there with like large positions. I don't know what your positions are, but I'm assuming more than a few $100s. So that's really nice. With some of the smaller tokens, you can't just load up like 20K without impacting the price like really significantly. Do you is there anything else that you'd like to touch on and share your thoughts on this meta and on this meta more broadly?
I think one thing about what excited me about Believe, and so I guess one thing for background, I didn't play the AI meta. It was like pretty obvious that there was not the smartest founders in that space, a lot of grifters in that space. AGI and Solana was retarded, to be honest. So didn't play that. So I think one thing that I believe people are misunderstanding, because they're a bit jaded from the AI slop, from the AI meta, is that I don't really think it's a meta. I think this has the potential to create a new capital structure for new startups to utilize crypto. And I think Ben and that team is the only team who can complete this vision. And obviously, it may not work out, but I wouldn't I don't refer to this as a meta rather than a new the potential start of a new cap structure for startups.
That's a fair point. I refer to it as a meta because I think it's going to be like the center of attention on CT, the same way that AI agents were. Like the AI meta was a meta because like everyone was talking about it on the timeline for like weeks at a time, and we saw things go to like 2 billion market cap for kind of things that were kind of ridiculous. I feel like we might see a similar level of speculation here, partially because it's you can't duplicate the startup that you're like trying to buy. Like there's only one of each kind of play. So when everyone jumps into the same plays, I think like that's what drives a crazy price appreciation. Like in the AI meta, you couldn't just like launch another AI 16Z. There's only one of them. So if you wanted to buy it, you had to buy that one.
Yeah, that's fair.
Do you think, and so one of my questions was, do you think that any other launch pads will meaningfully compete with Believe for internet capital markets type tokens? And it sounds like no.
No, I think
And what?
everyone's
Yeah,
trying.
can you expand
but
on that?
Everyone's trying, but the thesis they have is that we just want to have like real products launch on chain, but that's kind of like the wrong approach. It's still seen as a shitcoin launchpad, and like everyone, there's even like a lot of other companies on Solana that are launching launchpads over the next month. But like, why would a random engineer, let's say at Anthropic or at Facebook, want to launch on a random crypto company's launchpad when they've seen their friends or other people in their network launch on Believe? And if Believe can offer, and they're trying to do this, but like offer better advisory and better services layer on top of the app itself, which they've been working on, but it doesn't really make sense to why that would occur.
Let me add something there. So I totally agree with you that if Believe adds a lot of advisory services and value on top of that, on top of their launchpad, I think they can be very sticky. Like for one example, they have really awesome connections. I mean, Ben and Nikita like just have a lot of clout, and getting their attention on Twitter is going to be a lot easier if you launch on their launchpad than if you launch elsewhere. And that attention is super valuable. The reasons I thought that maybe a launchpad could compete would be that Believe is taking a heavy fee, a heavy split. Right now they just changed it to be 70-30, so that Believe is taking 30% of the fees generated. That's a lot of money, especially for some of these big companies. They've generated over $1 million in fees, and in return they haven't gotten a ton of support. Now if that changes, I think they're going to be very valuable and stick around. But I think the juice for another launchpad to come through would be that you can offer lower fees significantly. If the launchpad is taking a 1% cut instead of a 30% cut, like that's a lot more attractive for a builder because it just leaves more liquidity in your token. Because it is pretty damaging. I think some of these tokens are too high. They have too high of fees. Like you don't want to be taking 2% out of every transaction, and if Believe can like make that more adjustable, I think that's also going to be good, because maybe if another launchpad comes through and lets you adjust the amount of fees that each transaction is taking, that's another like valuable feature that Believe doesn't have at the moment.
Definitely, yeah. Agree there somewhat, but I also think that the fee spread is kind of like not that relevant and kind of drives the shitcoin casino thesis even more. So if you have a competitor launchpad that only takes 1% fees, it's going to just drive more grifters, mercenaries, and shitters to launch there. And the destigmatization of launching on that platform just goes to zero. So there's a healthy balance to be made. I don't have the exact number, but the team, they did reduce their take rate from 50-50 to 70-30. And there could be more room for change there, but I don't think that just by offering a new Launchpad, offering much less, or having a lower spread from what they take is going to be anything meaningful. It's going to do the opposite because you tracked. It's more trash to launch.
And you don't have the brand of Believe. I think if Believe can really lean into their brand and making it a place where if someone sees a Believe coin, you can look at it and have a good level of certainty that this isn't just a shit coin, that this coin actually has a team behind it and is actually building something. Do you think Believe should lean into that curation more, or should they lean back and be more permissionless and let people just launch with a tweet and continue just to launch with no or little verification?
I think there's a mix and I think this is what they're doing, but by both having or enabling anyone to launch, while also leading towards more curation on the website. So if someone's on the website or the app, there's suppose like different categories that they could be consumer startups, they could be AI SaaS or AI tooling startups, but like had different categories where if I'm an investor or trader or someone looking to buy a Believe app token, and they kind of curate the website for me and highlight the ones that they believe are not scams, but still allow anyone to launch freely, I think is a decent middle ground.
Yeah, I agree. And right now they're letting the community kind of do that and filter out the scams. And that's what I'm building at Dashcoin Research, is a tool to help you filter out the scams and sort by the things that you want to see. So go check that out if you haven't yet.
I have. It's nice. You pushed to update something yesterday or 2 days ago, so it's really cool now.
Yes.
It's
I'm making the UI. Yeah, it started out as dog shit, and now it's significantly less dog shit, making it a better product every day. But it's still got a long ways to go. Rocky, I think that's all I got for you. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we head out?
Nothing else. That was fun.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. Everyone go follow Rocky. His Twitter is going to be in the description. You're probably going to see it from Twitter anyway. But Chamath's intern, go check him out. And Rocky, real quick before we end, what's the deal with the name? Where does Chamath's intern come from?
Yeah, so I had a different name at the start. It was like Scooby-Doo Dow, because I was a big Scooby-Doo fan growing up, but got no traction there. Chamath's intern kind of came up because he was the center of like finance, crypto, and tech back in 21 when he was like doing all the SPACs. So I was like, there was high relatability among people on Twitter. So it's like stands out. And then he's brown, I'm brown. I'm like, that's pretty dope. So that was basically it. And nice. I guess the intern meta was going on as well. So.
Mm-hmm. And I remember your old handle. The way I always remembered you was Priya GCR.
That was not my handle. That's my bio. But
that was your bio.
It's still my bio, but yeah.
Word.
And that I do with like the GCR trend that was going on for a bit. I think last year, second half or Q2 of last year.
Someone asked on Twitter. I gotta ask you. I said I'd ask. Will you ever find love, Rocky?
Hopefully.
We're rooting for you. You seem like a charming guy.
Thank you.
All right. See you later, everyone.